All right, good morning, everybody, or afternoon. I'm so glad to be here to present with you balancing your body's clock with essential oils. And we're going to be looking at the traditional Chinese medicine clock and how it relates to your organs. I really enjoyed this quote that I found because it really talks about how our body is in such harmony together and how everything works. Everything is connected from the top of our head to the tip of our toes. And if one thing gets out of into disharmony, it can cause other things, a chain reaction. So that's really what disease is about. It's about misuse, abuse, and unuse of what our body is to be. So I wish everybody harmony. A little bit about myself and my family. It's my husband Patrick and my daughter Isabella. We have been doing, doTERRA have been building this business for about 7 years. It's been slow, but we are really dedicated to living a life of a natural, healthy lifestyle. My qualifications to kind of talk to you about this is for 26 years, I've been a body worker and a healer, specializing in cranial sacral therapy and the nervous system, peripheral nerves. I've also been a Tai Chi and Qigong teacher when I lived in California. I used to help teach for Saddleback Emeritus program, and then I would have several private homes that I would go to and do Qigong and healing touch with some of the clients. So the flow for today is where I'm going to give you a little bit of history about traditional Chinese medicine, and we're going to look at what the difference is as far as what we know as circadian rhythms, and we're going to look at the clock, and then we're going to actually go through all of the organs and look at all of the supporting oils. Okay, so the Ne Qing was a book that was written, it was manual written about 4,000 years ago. They don't really kind of know who it was. They think it was the fabled Yellow Emperor, but he really talked about living with the seasons and the phases of the moon and how our body worked within that, because we are energy, we are the universe, we are controlled by the sun and the moon and the tides, and so it's really important to look how we can live in harmony. Now, Western medicine came up with, actually the National Sleep Foundation came up with circadian rhythms. And we know that people that don't follow the circadian rhythms, and when they live in areas where they don't have that natural sunlight, they can have depression and their sleep cycle gets all messed up, and they just have a hard time acclimating. I mean, even people that work like graveyard shift and everything else, even if you're a night person like my daughter is, she really thrives kind of in the midnight hours. I know several people who are like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but really that tells me that her circadian rhythm is kind of off a little bit. And so I try to use the oils to help her get that rhythm back, because these are known facts of what happens with our body during the hours of the day. And this is with modern medicine. Now, the Chinese also knew that in traditional Chinese medicine that we had a body clock, and they put it in a 24-hour energy cycle that's actually, like it says, hardwired to the fabric of our blood, bones, and organs. It's all about our meridians and how the energy flows through our body in this 24-hour cycle. So today, what we're going to look at is they break up these cycles into 2-hour sectors, and each sector is associated with an organ in the body. And that's when the qi, or the life energy of the body, flows through that organ. And so what we want to do is be able to enhance that and balance that if we have a little bit of disharmony. Okay, so the medical benefits of doing this is, first of all, we're going to help balance that stamina fatigue. We're going to bring that into balance so that we have that sustained energy that we need. And we're also going to learn when is our most productive and least productive times of the day. Also too, with our moods, and what we do, we can actually change. If we don't get enough sleep, we're grumpy, or we don't eat properly at the wrong times, we get upset stomachs or we get hangry, and then the body clock really has a cycle to it. So we'll look at that. Okay, so this is kind of the face of the clock. And I have two different clocks there. They're both the same, they both relate, but I like this one a little bit better because it shows the hours, and on the outer ring, those are the organs that are at the top of their game, so to say, during that time frame. And then the little gray circle around are the organs that are the counter to that. They're the ones that are are in their rest cycle, or they don't have the most chi running through them. All right, so we're going to continue to use that clock face, and I kind of broke it up a little bit. And I do want to pull this one back because I really like this is talking about harmony, right? We have disharmony and then we have harmony. So here's some harmonizing habits that we can actually do to help our body. So we're really looking at this starting 5 to 7 a.m. We're waking up, and you can see from 5 to 7, that's when our large intestines, are getting going. You know, I guess it's good to have sex first thing in the morning too, before breakfast, right? Um, and then for working and your concentration and how you kind of eat. And I love how right there between that 1 and 3, right after you've had lunch, that's when your small intestine is really working to absorb the food, and how you can support it with a nap. So I am advocating naps, okay? um, I also love too that 7 to 9 p.m. That's when your heart, your pericardium is protecting your heart, and that's time for self-love, and nurturing yourself. Self-care could also be a form of self-love, of taking care of yourself so that you can get into that rest cycle, so that you can go to sleep and your body can recover and do all of the repairing that it needs to wake up once again. Okay, so we're going to rock around the clock, is what I called it. So the first one that I'm going to look at is it's actually 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. And this is when your gallbladder chi is the strongest. And I find that interesting because your chi tends to help you have that confidence, and you're fearless, right? You can go. But it's interesting that we're doing it at that hour of the night. But what I found when I researched all of this is that a lot of times our gallbladder can be really weak, and that this is the time when we're usually asleep and we're protected. So then it has time for that chi to flow through it and to heal it. Okay, the gallbladder is part of the liver, so it's really important that that gallbladder work properly to help get that bile and that flow going. All right, here's some oils that support the gallbladder. So I kind of broke it up. I wanted to give you a picture of overall support of things that you can use on a daily, throughout the day, or you could put these on. Like I love putting Zendocrine on my gallbladder at night before I go to bed, because I'm supporting it through the night. I also gave you a couple things that I found when I was using my Modern Essentials and my Essential Basics books on some things that might be in disharmony. So like if you have an infection or if you have stones, these are the oils that are used to support those. I also wanted to talk about emotions, because our harmony is all encompassing. It's not only physical, but it's mental and emotional. So our gallbladder really relates to trusting in ourselves, relationships, and life. And when on the negative side, we can be blaming ourselves, we can get very defensive or angry or kind of live in fear. So these oils, bergamot, clove, copaiba, ylang ylang, geranium, and wintergreen, are phenomenal for helping and support and help kind of reverse those negative emotions. All right, the next clock we're going to look at, or the next organ we're going to look at, is from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., and that's the liver. Now, we know how important our liver is. Our liver detoxifies our blood and digestion. It helps everything in our body. And when we have a weak liver, we can be angry or irritable and have tempers. I'm sure we've all known somebody like that. I find it interesting that it says here that people who suffer liver problems often find themselves waking up in the early morning hours. Now, don't confuse that with, as we get older, if we've had, a lot to drink, we're hydrating as we should. We may have to get up through the night to use the restroom, and that's fine. But this is the pattern. If you see a pattern that you're always waking up between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m., then it's time to maybe take a look at how you can support your liver best. Um, so the digestive partner, and so as we go around the clock, you'll see they have partners on both sides of the liver. So the partner for the liver is going to be the gallbladder that we just looked at, and the next one is the opposite is going to be the small intestine. Okay, so this is when your small intestine is at weakest because your liver is processing. Here are the oils that support the liver. Again, overall support. And then I picked a couple conditions that the liver may have that we can support with that. I love, as I did this, I found that Zindecrine, is a wonderful, wonderful blend because all of the oils that are in Zindecrine help kind of support all of the organs. So you'll see Zindecrine on a lot of these charts. So I recommend, if you don't have it, that might be one oil that you're going to put on your order, your loyalty reward order for next month. But also I want you to know that the liver really needs to have those supplements of the lifelong vitality to also help it. That's our foundation, right? That's our intentional health foundation that we really need to support. And our liver is a major function organ in our body. So the more support that we can give it, the better. Also, I love the Zindecrine detoxification complex. This is a botanical complex that helps support all of the organs in detoxifying, and especially the gastrointestinal system. So emotionally, the liver is basically the life flow or the survival center for us. So if our liver is being attacked, we feel like we're being attacked and we become angry and bitter and hardened. Here are some wonderful oils that can help with that. I love cardamom. I have a special love affair with that since I had the opportunity to go to Guatemala on a co-impact sourcing trip and to see, how beautiful that plant is and how it's lovingly distilled to be this wonderful supportive oil for us. Another one that I really like in here is forgive, because a lot of times, whether we're forgiving somebody else or we're forgiving ourselves, if we can't do that, we can be very angry and bitter. All right. And I invite you to take screenshots. I a.m. to 5 a.m. And that is when our lungs are at the chi is going through our lungs. The lungs are really a detoxification organ. It's one of the ones that we eliminate toxins from. You think about breathing in oxygen and we breathe out carbon dioxide, right? So we've taken that carbon dioxide that's been in our blood, that's flowed through and come back to our lungs, and we're expelling that. right? And then we're bringing fresh oxygen in. So it's really important, the breathing that we get, especially at night. So one of the suggestions that I kind of have is, and we'll have it on the oils there, is having breathe in your diffuser, because your diffuser can help support that breath when you're, in that chi of the lung. I also thought it was interesting that about 4:30 a.m. is when our body temperature is the lowest. So it's kind of like, if you think about how a body will kind of slow down, right? And cool down and relax, and then our lungs gives us a chance to breathe and get that deep breathing. I like here too that it says with Qigong practitioners, um, this is also a good time for a morning meditation. So if you're an early riser and you really want to do your deep breathing in the morning, this is a perfect time to get up. All right. Not me. Okay, so here's the oils that support the lungs. So of course, breathe is wonderful. Eucalyptus, peppermint, anything that opens up. The cardamom is actually excellent for your lungs too, which I really love. And some of the conditions that can affect our lungs are like pneumonia and pleurisy, where pneumonia is fluid in the lungs, and pleurisy is inflammation of the lining that's around the lungs. So both of these are not good. And we have lots of oils to help support that. The emotions that are combined with the lungs are the ability to breathe in life. Can you breathe in and enjoy life, right? Can you take a deep breath and release all of that and have that security in your life? And if not, then do you feel betrayed? Are you grieving? And when we did the 6 healing sounds, we talked about how the lungs hold so much grief. It's just when people are sad, their lungs are heavy. They find it hard to breathe when they're grieving. So there's some really wonderful oils for that. Console is phenomenal for grief. Feeling lost or rejected. Rejection is turning you away. It's that you're losing that security or that release, being able to release that. So blue tansy is one of my favorites. And I kind of looked at these oils and was like, okay, what am I using and why? you know, Teaching is very educational, not only for the teacher, for the students and the teacher too. All right, the next hours we're going to look at is 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. And that's when our colon, our large intestine, is really starting to kick in. They say if you have a good constitution, you're usually getting up in the morning and you're going and you're having a bowel movement. And that's because your body has been able to take all of the food that you've consumed the prior day before. The liver has detoxified the blood, it's gone through the body, and now it's coming out, it's grabbed all the nutrition and the liquid, and now it's time to get rid of that waste and kind of start fresh a day. So one of the things that I find is interesting is that the large intestines are kind of connected to the lungs when it comes to sadness and mental stagnation. So if you think about, are you having a hard time with that constitution? Are you really, um, is there something else? Is there an emotion that's really tied to that? Um, Also too, when our colon is working hard, our kidneys are kind of hanging out, right? So we have one thing that's really activated and another that's hanging out. I also like here that our sharpest rise in blood pressure is about 6:45 a.m. in the morning. And I always have read and heard, and now I kind of understand why. When you get up in the morning, it's really good to drink water, because think about it, your kidneys are kind of in their low, right? So they're not processing the water through your body. And when you drink that water, that's actually helping your heart, right? It helps your heart to kind of lower that blood pressure. So it shows how all of our organs are really tied together. All right, here are some oils that support the colon. Overall, um, we're talking gastrointestinal from, I say, from one end to the other. We know that our digestin and tamer is really good for that. Peppermint, PB Assist, and PB Assist Junior. I cannot say enough about having probiotics, because when you have that gut flora balanced, then you are going to be healthier. It supports your immune system better. It makes it just it helps overall, and it helps your moods because we create serotonin. We have that brain gut connection, so it really helps us to be balanced, which is what we want. We want the body in harmony. Once again, that Zendocrine detoxification complex is really good. A couple conditions of disharmony that may be out there, and some oils that can support that. Um, the DDR prime I find is interesting because that is an oil that helps cellular health. And we know that diverticulitis is the pockets within the colon, they get infected, and they hold on to little pockets of waste, which isn't good for us as toxins. So this helps those cells um, kind of get healthy. All right. And emotion wise, our colon is really about our deep seated beliefs about self and life. Again, security. Remember, it's kind of connected to the lungs there. Um, when we have emotional struggles, we might find ourselves being distrusting. That is with security, insecure, unworthy, maybe doing some self sabotaging. And here are some wonderful oils that can help change that. I really like the bergamot, is really good for helping support the self and the self-esteem. And then, we got to forgive ourselves again too, right? And then once again, Zinderkran. All right. Now we're at 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Lot going on first thing in the morning, right? Because we're getting up, our body's going. It's really getting this process going. Um, I like here it says, in general, the stomach always moves nutrients, waste, and chi downward for processing, but sometimes it'll move it upward if it's being rebellious. So, say if you have food poisoning or uh, the stomach flu, it's going to come up as opposed to go down. And I thought that was really interesting because our stomach really has a lot of control if we think about it. Um, we have here again, we're picking up that rise in blood pressure at 6:45, but then the melatonin stops, right? And then look at that, how we move into that. And then I guess that high testosterone secretion, that's why you do sex in the morning, right? Uh, in a psychological sense, a strong stomach energy is confidence and security. And if you think about people that have indigestion and stomach issues and weak stomachs, um, they're usually really worried. They're carrying it in their gut. So that's something to really look at, is where if your stomach hurts all the time, um, we need to look at maybe some of these supporting oils. Okay, the stomach is paired with the spleen, and notice it's opposite the pericardium. We talked about the pericardium a little while ago, just touching into self-care. And then look at the opposite, self-care. If you're not caring for yourself, then you can have worry, tension, and anxiety. All right, now the oils that support the stomach overall, basil, peppermint, whatnot, digestin. Some of the disharmony conditions that may occur. Um, Celery seed is one of our newer oils that has shown to be really phenomenal for not only the stomach, but for the esophagus and for the small intestines, really helping that uh, become in harmony again. The emotions that are associated with our stomach. It's our stomach's kind of a library of our, if we say, oh, I have a gut feeling or that intuition, because we carry a lot of stuff there. And that's why we have that gut brain connection, right? It's the library in our brain, it's in our gut, it could be one or the other. It also helps our beliefs and by our past experiences. All right, so your mind might forget, but your stomach won't. Have you ever kind of walked into a situation and all of a sudden your stomach's like, no, this isn't right? If you listen to that and you do what you should do, what your gut is telling you, it really helps you be safe. um, Here's on the negative side, you could be anxious, fearful, hopeless, terrified, right? That's walking into that room and having that feeling of, so trust your gut and then put on some adaptive or peace, or I love the black spruce. It's wonderful for that. And also hope. So please mute yourself if you have your microphone on. The next clock we're going to be looking at is the spleen, and that's from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And our spleen is kind of like our liver. It filters blood, but our spleen also filters the lymphatic system. And the lymph is all over our whole body. The lymph fluids take all of the toxins that are around our body, and it goes through that spleen, and it, clears all of that out so that, we have our blood and we have our lymph fluid, and those are very important to do that. Now, the one thing is the spleen, both the liver and all of our organs, as a matter of fact, have what we call motility, right? They have an intrinsic movement, whether that movement is directly related to the function of our breathing and moving, but everything moves in our body. When things stop moving, that's when we're in trouble, right? Especially when it comes to our organs. So when our spleen's functioning properly, it's actually bringing that awareness and producing mental clarity and the lightness of being. If we have kind of fuzzy thoughts, maybe what we need to do is address our spleen, right? So let's look at oils that support our spleen. We have the marjoram and the cypress. And then once again, because it's similar to the liver, we are bringing in those lifelong vitality, the alpha CRS, the omegas, the microplex VMZ, because that's our foundational support. Our liver and our spleen are, all of our organs are foundational, but those are really important because they are the two organs that actually help cleanse and detoxify all of the fluid that's in our body. If we find that we have like swollen ankles, right? That means that we're kind of slowing down. Our spleen is a little sluggish. So that might be something else that we can do. That's kind of that decongestion that we're talking about. Some emotions that are associated with the spleen are mental powers and our metabolism, because our metabolism is part of our endocrine system, which the spleen is tied into that. We looked at, when we did the 6 healing sounds, how the spleen holds worry, and we can do that sound of whoo to help release that, right? I will do that class again. I did forget to record it, but it was a great class. So we will do that class next month. Some oils that can support those emotions. One of my favorite is the Serenity, because that helps take away that that calms you down from that worry. Peace is also good, and adaptive. I can't say enough about adaptive. We've been seeing and hearing so many testimonies of how wonderful this oil is on helping with anxiety and worry and distrust and sadness and all of those other things that go along with that. All right, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we're halfway around the clock, all right? I'm gonna kind of try and hurry it up here. So now we have the heart, right? So from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., our heart chi is the strongest. So right now, we're in, I'm in good heart chi because it's 12:30. I'm sharing the love. My heart and my energy is so full to be here and to be sharing with you these wonderful healing oils. The heart is also our soul. We talk about heart and soul. And in traditional Chinese medicine, the soul or the spirit is known as Shen. And it has five separate forms of consciousness, which is the Yi, the Ji, the Shen, the Po, and the Un. So I don't speak Chinese, so if I mispronounce something, I apologize, but that's kind of what I heard when I was looking them up. Remember, your heart is connected to your tongue, right? Because you can say things. Um, if you speak too fast, you may say things that um, you shouldn't have said, right? And that will create an unbalanced heart energy. Also, the heart is joy, right? That's our seat of joy and laughter and delight. So it's really important that we nurture our heart chi. Notice our gallbladder is kind of hanging out now. It's just kind of like, okay, it's the weakest time. So think about what you put in your body around this lunch hour. We don't want to be really bombarding our gallbladder with heavy oils. When I say oils, I mean fats, because that's really what our gallbladder does, is break down the fats. So salads are wonderful for lunch, or, you know, maybe things that are not on the fat side. Um, okay. Overall support for our heart. Ylang ylang is the heart oil. It's just wonderful for everything. It's a really beautiful oil. Ylang ylang, interestingly, is put in a lot of perfumes. And if you think about the perfume industry, you really wear perfumes so that you can attract people. You're touching their heart, right? And so ylang ylang is in a lot of perfumes. Here are some other disharmony within our heart and some oils that can support that. And then for emotions, our heart is our center of love. And so we can literally be heartbroken and hopeless and sad. And these are some oils that really help. The cheer, you know, I've kind of put in here some of the emotional oils. We have some phenomenal emotional oils. There's 6 of them that really use all of the chemical constituents that help support our emotions regardless. And we can do an emotions class in the future if you're interested in that. All right. Next one is the small intestine. That's 1 to 3 p.m. So remember, we talked about you've had your lunch and now your small intestine is working really hard to digest that food that you've had at lunch. And this is a great time for a nap, right? Um, so let's go ahead and look at what will help our small intestine. Once again, they're going to be kind of those gastrointestinal oils, right? The digestin, tamer is lovely. Uh, Once again, we're looking at the probiotics, right? And what I found is really important at this hour is the Terrazyme, because that's when we really need that support of those additional enzymes to help break down our food so that we get the proper nutrition. We need it in the morning and at night too, but because of the traditional Chinese medicine clock, this is Terrazymes with lunch are super important. The emotions that are with the small intestines are really about assimilating life's experiences. And if we can't assimilate those, we kind of feel lost, or else we're always thinking about it. So here are really good oils to help move past that. Green mandarin is another favorite of mine. And, you know, copaiba, well, We love that too. So once again, we have the zendocrine in there. All right, the bladder is from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Our bladder's job is to help the water flow through and to urinate. Notice the opposite of that is the lung. And we have the greatest cardiovascular efficiency and muscle strength at 5 p.m. I find that interesting. It's a good time to go work out, I guess, right? It's really important that we drink a lot of water, at least half our body weight in ounces. So if you weigh 100 pounds, you should be drinking 50 ounces of water every day. It's so good. Our body is such a fluid element that we just need to continue to hydrate it. I thought this was interesting too about the bladder meridian going down on either side of the spine, because if you think about it, the bladder meridian goes down both of the sides, and then it comes down to the pressure point right at the bottom. That will help stimulate that. So in shiatsu and tuina massage, which I have learned about both of those are working with the acupressure points within the body. There's certain points that you can massage and actually even use the essential oils on, kind of like in reflexology, that help support that. So let's look at those oils. Overall support, once again, we have that digestion is really good. Also, what I really like too, and I think I put this in here, is, oh, I don't see it. Cypress is excellent for the bladder. So I don't know why I didn't put it there. But it's wonderful to help support the bladder, especially if there's bedwetting. Cypress is really good for that. The emotions that are associated with the bladder, because our bladder stores anger about life circumstances, or if we feel like we've been taken for granted or slighted, especially by an authority figure, it can really affect that and leave us bitter, helpless, and violated. And so here's some wonderful oils to help those, support those emotions and kind of help you get out of that. Jasmine and Beautiful are two of my favorites. I also find it interesting that citronella is in there, because citronella is a repellent. So if you're feeling violated, you want to repel the violator. So just kind of thinking about that. All right, now we're at the kidneys from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And the kidneys are another filter for our body. And it's not as complex as our liver and our spleen, but once again, they are really important for processing this body fluid. The kidneys are considered the root of life in traditional Chinese medicine, and a lot of times fear is held in the kidneys, especially if we have destructive practices. They can really damage the kidneys, and the jing is part of that. So let's look at what will help our kidneys. Juniper berry is phenomenal for kidneys. I highly recommend, if you have issues with your kidneys, you want to look at that juniper berry. DDR prime is wonderful. And once again, zendocrine is in there, and lifelong vitality. Remember, the kidneys, the liver, the spleen are all of these foundational organs that help process the body fluids. So we need to have that lifelong vitality as a foundation. I also like seeing the celery seed in here for the dysfunction of stones, because you think about it, the stones are, we've actually had too much of, usually they're calcium, or they can be of other things that build up because our kidneys can't flush that out, and then that creates that stone. So celery seed is really good at soothing and flushing, I find. And then emotions, not letting go, holding on to that, whatever it is, that anger or somebody that just can't let it go, holds that grudge. Um, Forgiveness and fear is really something that's important for our kidneys, is letting go of that. And I actually like spikenard. Some people say, heard it described as blueberries and dirty socks. I think that's probably the closest I've heard. But I'm actually liking spikenard. I've been using it um, the last couple weeks for another issue, disharmony in my body that I'm trying to address. And I'm starting to really like it. I'm combining it with the yarrow palm, and I think it's got a lot of power there. So just some considerations. All right, 7 to 9 p.m. is our pericardium. Remember, we talked about this is the tissue that surrounds our heart. It's our protector of our heart. This is when we should be self-nurturing and giving ourselves love and loving ourselves. Okay. It's all about, you know, our flow. And this is also too, you think about it, this is the time where you have your romance and um, other things that happen with all of that, right? Um, so the pericardium is paired with the triple burner, and the triple burner will be the next and the last organ that we will be looking at. What I found is that the pericardium, there's not really an emotion that's associated with that other than happiness. Happiness is the emotion that's associated with the pericardium. And so I think I went too fast. Yep. And oh, what I want to say too about the pericardium is all the oils that we talked about with the heart will help support the pericardium. And then we have our triple warmer. This is the meridian in the body that kind of brings everything together. It runs from the bottom of our body uh, down in that lower dantian, what we call, or in yoga, it's our chakra, our root chakra, all the way up around our head and back down. So this triple burner really helps bring everything together in harmony and flow. And so this is the time that everything is working together. That melatonin starts secreting. This is a time where we've already calmed down and given that self-care, and now we're going into that really restful state. All right, so any of the oils that help you rest will support that. All right, so quick review of our clock once again. So we've rocked around the clock. We're almost at 1 o'clock, so that'll be time for our small intestines to kick in. I want to talk a little bit about yin and yang of the 24-hour day. We have yin is the female energy life force, and yang is the male energy life force. And we have to really balance that. That's why in that yin yang symbol, everything is flowing and circular and balanced. So the early morning hours are those young hours, those starting out strong. And then the evening is we're starting to slow down and get into that softer, gentler side. All right, so it's really important to balance your energy. So if you find that you're doing really strong things late at night, you're going to be throwing your clock off, right? You're going to be throwing that energy off. Also, the yin and yang are related to the 4 seasons. Like everything in traditional Chinese medicine, it's all related to the seasons, the earth, colors. It's just really beautiful how it brings it all in. And you can see that there's a lot of symmetry. Yang is spring. Once again, it's that growth, it's that strength, right? also in the summer, and then comes the autumn and things start slowing down and the winter is soft again. Okay, so I want to just share some references that I use to give you this information. Um, I'm really appreciative of the books. I also did a lot of searching on the internet. So I guess I could put Google up there. But that is our class. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording here.